Hello and welcome to this episode of The Inner Estate. I'm so pleased to introduce you to my guest, Steve Rupp. Steve, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this, Bridget.
I have too. You and I have had the privilege of knowing each other now. It's going on at least 8 years. We can talk about that later and nail it down, but it's been quite a while. And we have known each other primarily professionally and through coaching and our chosen industry of real estate. And I just am thrilled because today I want you to share how you've built the life that you have and the decisions you've made to not only have your incredible real estate empire, I'll call it, and you've also become a coach, so you're impacting others, and you have a beautiful family. So I feel like in this month of December, I can't wait for you to share the gift of steps you've taken to create the life you've built. Where can you start with that? What are you passionate about that you believe would be impactful for our listeners?
I believe that it has become increasingly hard for people to find their passions in the midst of all of the, let's call it noise that all of us have. And I feel that as technology has become more and more advanced, there's more and more noise, which means there is even less time for people to be alone with their thoughts. I feel this, and this is why I say this. I just taught I taught a class yesterday talking about this, and it was your vision loops, meeting yourself 5 years from now. Yes. And the whole point of this was that we don't take the time that we used to be alone with ourselves. We don't feel comfortable with being alone with ourselves. And the evidence of this would be a very quick example of how many people do you see standing in line? How many people do you see at a dinner table when you're out at a restaurant? How many people do you see sitting next to each other? And they've got one thing in common, and that's that they're all on their phone all the time.
Yeah.
You know, you'll have people, we make jokes about this. Everybody knows this. You'll be sitting next to somebody and texting them or snapping them. And people, it's almost like people are afraid of being alone with themselves. And we've gotten out of habit of being comfortable with that. And I believe strongly that that is taking a massive toll on our mental health. And we're seeing this in all the studies that have come up to prove this.
Yes.
Over and over and over again. And so there's even, you pay a lot of money to go to dead zones where you don't have access to your technology, where you can actually, I don't know, be with yourself, be with friends, be with family, whoever it is that you're with, just to get back and reground yourself. And heck, even talking about grounding, you've got, now there's a whole movement about grounding and taking your shoes off and your socks off and walking in the grass and walking in, maybe not without your shoes, but walking in nature, a forest or through a garden or whatever. Why? It's for the same thing. We are creatures of habit now that have become, unfortunately, addicted to our technology and the feeling, the small dopamine hit that it gives us when we get all those messages and snaps and emails and whatever else that is every single time we get them. And we're also addicted to the pleasure that we get when someone acknowledges the message that we put out there.
Correct.
How many times do people post on social media just to get attention? And we can go, not to go way down the rabbit hole, there's all kinds of examples on this where people will post a comment just to get a reaction.
Yeah.
Or
whether
a
it's
photo
positive
or
or
a
negative.
video.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's some people, well, heck, we'll even go business. There's some people out there that will post intentionally a controversial topic just to get a reaction. And I'm not, it's not good or bad. It's what some of them are done intentionally for a good way, for a good reason, to get conversation going because they know that that's the easiest way to do it. And hats off to those people. Other people are doing it just to get attention. Why? Because and this is kind of what I feel about the whole mental health thing as it relates to businesses as well, like business owners, is that I feel that we are so addicted to what other people think about us to give us validation of how we're supposed to feel about ourselves. And I feel that that is the exact opposite of what it should be.
Yes.
How many times have we heard, don't worry about other people's outside to justify what your inside feels like. And I butchered the quote, but you know what I mean. It's an epidemic, and we're living in a mental health crisis right now. And I don't know what the solution is. What I do know is that part of the solution is to find times. And we talked about this, and there was actually a guy in the class yesterday where I asked, there were about 50 people in there, and I asked everybody in the class, I said, how many of you intentionally take time out of your day, whenever it is, to just be alone with your thoughts? Maybe this could be during yoga. Maybe it could be doing meditation. Maybe it could be journaling. You name it. Maybe it's just laying there in bed and you're just quiet. And out of the 50 people, Bridget, take a guess as to how many people raised their hand.
3.
2.
2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right there. So 2 people did. And people acknowledged that not having that was a problem, was an issue. And I believe that this is exacerbated even more when you have business owners, entrepreneurs who are wearing all these different hats, and they aren't able to take the time because they feel like they're being bombarded with all of these jobs that they have to do. And they don't have the time to be alone with themselves and to actually work on themselves because they're working in their business. And I feel it's an issue. It's a massive issue right now.
It's a massive issue.
Yeah. So that's been just some observations that I've found over the past several years. It's something that I've dealt with myself as well. And when I was transitioning out of my real estate business, it was something where, from a business owner standpoint, I was burned out, and, it was something, it was the only thing, and maybe a lot of people can relate to this, is the only thing that whatever your business is, and you've been doing it for a long time, and you know how to do it, and you're like, well, what's next? Is this all there is? There's got to be something else. I don't have the challenge anymore. I don't have that energy, that spark, that, whatever that thing is. And I feel that a lot of times business owners, they have that feeling. And they are looking for something else. And the problem is a lot of them just don't take that next step, which is having the courage to leave behind what they've known, the comfort place, and moving out of comfort into the unknown, which is uncomfortable. And as we know, and you and I have talked about, that's where growth happens. That's where the opportunity happens. And I would also submit that there's a lot of people that are right now playing outside of their superpower. And I know there's books that have been written about this, about superpowers, but I firmly believe that, we have God-given talents. Everybody was born with talents. And the unfortunate part and the sad part and disappointing part is that there's a lot of people who are not playing, working, living within those talents, those superpowers, if you will. Right. And that's doing the world no good. And that's playing smaller than what you were intended to play. Because everybody, I believe, and I believe this vehemently, that everybody has some amazing skill that they are destined to share with the world. The issue is that you have to be able to take the time. Number one, the kind of going back and we talked about before, the quiet time. You need time to see what that is. Because for a lot of people, it's not what they're doing now. Right. And they're not taking the time to get to know themselves and to listen to themselves, what their heart, what their soul, what their mind is telling them, and that they're just keeping doing the same thing because it's what they're doing. It's easy, it's known, it's comfortable, whatever.
It's the status quo.
It's the status quo. And that's not their superpower. That's not the path they're destined to go down. And they're disappointing a lot of people, and they are shortchanging a lot of people who could benefit from what their superpower truly is and how they can help people. Here's a great example. So I was I'll just talk for me, for example, because that's who I know best. And, I was selling real estate for a long time. It's basically the only thing that I know. As you know, I grew up in the business. I took the business over from my dad after 25 years. I've worked in it for 50, you could say, with including my dad. And so it was the family business. And I'm sure there's a lot of your listeners can relate to this. There's a lot of them who have inherited a family business. Maybe it's multiple generations and you're expected to do this. The question then is that what you are really supposed to do? Or are you doing it because you feel that it's your only option? And it might be. It might be what you're supposed to do. I don't know. But there's a lot of people out there who are doing whatever it is that they're doing, and it's not what they're supposed to be. I believe my superpower is I have a great ability to take complex subjects and distill them into simple things, concepts, ideas that people can process easily. That's my superpower. And I love communicating with people. I love being on stages in front of people. And I love communicating my passions to people that way. It makes me happy.
Right.
And that's what I love doing. And I feel that that's my superpower. And everybody has a superpower. And part of what I do is helping people discover what their superpowers are, such that they can touch the world in ways that they might not have seen possible or even dreamed possible.
Right.
And that is the advantage and disadvantage for a lot of people, is so many people will never go down that path of what their superpower is. And that's unfortunate, and it's disappointing, it's frustrating, because there's so much more that a lot of people just haven't taken the time to discover because they're tied into these things. And that's the unfortunate part.
It consumes massive amounts of time. And I love what you're talking about with the superpowers. But going back to that social media / phone addiction that has a grip on the country, it almost turns you into a spectator instead of someone who's playing in the game on the field. And going back to what you said about people that purposefully post hot takes or controversial thoughts, and they want to start a conversation or they want attention. They're like on the field, but they lose control of the ball quickly because of, do they get the reaction or not? Does it start the hubbub or not? So it's an interesting place we find ourselves in, and it is noisy. So you mentioned that, I call it digital white noise. We are surrounded by digital white noise all day. Unless we purposefully carve time out and make sure that we are detaching from it. Here, I'll follow your lead. I'll give one example that I'm living. My 23-year-old son and I, we have decided that there's no technology during dinner.
Great.
We don't need to discuss it. Even if we're at a restaurant, no one's pulling their phone out unless we want to take a quick photo. But even if we come up with something like, what was that Clint Eastwood movie from whatever, we discuss and try to see if we can figure it out. And we don't confirm it till after we leave the dinner. We need to Google search, who is Clint Eastwood's son and what did he do? That is something that is having an impact on communication. And I don't want to go down about me. I definitely do grounding. Last month, I laid down in Death Valley. I climbed Mount Whitney in September because guess what? No cell service once you get above the portal. So it's very funny when you were saying those. I was like, that's what I'm doing. I seek it out. And I call it going off grid. But let's jump back to what you were saying. If you are consumed with the scroll, the feedback, either way, like you post something you think is going to get engagement, it doesn't, and then that gives you certain response and emotion. You get certain ones, oh my gosh, look who responded. You don't have that white space in your mind where you can reflect and create and test, and it doesn't happen. So
that's right.
And then you have people where they could make that tough choice of leaving their known status quo and pursuing their superpower. So I want to ask you, could you share with us, when did you know that you were going to make your big move, and how did you do it?
That's a great question. And I can tell you the exact moment it happened. It was about almost 2 years ago. Well, next month, it was on December the 12th of 2023. And it was about 11:20 p.m. And I was laying in bed with my wife. We were getting ready to go to sleep. And I just rolled over and I said, I think I'm done. And she was like, done with what? I said, well, I think I'm done with real estate. And she was like, okay, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. But I'm done. I need an exit strategy. And so she said, she asked me a question. She said, so what, if you don't know what you're going to do, what are you going to then? I know what you're going from, but what are you going to? Something I talk to clients all the time about. You can't go from something without having something to go to. Because otherwise you won't have any staying power. You'll leave and go back to what it was you're going. Anyway, she started asking me questions, and of course, if you have a significant other, they a lot of times know us better than we know ourselves. And she had said, well, because I asked her, so what do you think I would be good at? And she had said, well, your whole family is teachers. You come from a teaching background. You love teaching. You've always loved teaching informally. We know in real estate that teachers make some of the best agents for a reason.
Yes.
And she said, you've been doing it for a long time. You love talking. Why don't you do coaching or speaking or training, whatever. You can stay in the industry that you love and that you're good at, that you have a ton of experience in, and both formally and experiential. And then you can help other agents succeed, which is something else you enjoy doing. And that's kind of where the idea of my new business started. And then so I started making plans for that. And it was where you had given us I still remember this, you had given us during COVID, all of your coaching clients, the care calls and working on the leveraging your vendor partners and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the whole idea came from, to do that. And then I just took it and blew it up. I'm like, okay, what if I create a whole program for myself to do this, for my business? And then that's when that started. And then I was in a training, and the coach was like, hey, you got something. You need to, this is massive, and you need to teach this. And then that was another seed that was planted. And so it just kind of, everything happens for a reason. As the saying goes, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Mm-hmm. And at the time when I was told that idea was a $1 million idea, I wasn't ready yet. I was still selling, and then a year later, had been ruminating on it for a while. And then I was like, I think I'm ready. And that's when, my wife had said, why don't you go into coaching? Why don't you try to teach agents how to have bigger businesses and better businesses, and, and so forth. Anyway, that's exactly the moment that happened. And I would also suggest that there's other smaller things that happened along the way. For example, one of the stories that I tell a lot when I'm speaking in front of groups for certain topics, and I told this story yesterday, was my daughter, Anna. And this was back in 2012 when she was about 8 years old. And I was working in my home office at the time, and it was about 8:40 in the evening. It was in October. It was the middle of October, like October 20th, 21st, 22nd, somewhere around there. I still remember she was wearing a blue, sparkly sequin dress. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those moments, that just imprints in your mind. And she kind of peeked around the door frame and said, Daddy, when am I going to see you again? And it just broke my heart. And I was like, crap, I'm losing my family. And that was something where it's like, I need to get help, because I'm doing everything myself. I'm the chief cook and bottle washer. I was scared, the first hire for any business, the first hire is the hardest hire. And this was no different. And so I had some really great cheerleaders, people who believed in me, and they were like, you need help. And this is how you're going to go about it. And so they showed me a path, and I went down the path. I took one step at a time, and I made my hire, and it changed my life. Mm-hmm. And it allowed me to scale. It allowed me to find time in my life so that little girl didn't grow up without a dad.
Right.
And that was important to me. And I think it's because it's so easy as an entrepreneur, as a leader of a business, for you to be so consumed in your business that you forget everything else. And it happens to a lot of us.
A lot of
And that's why
people.
you have so many divorces that happen with entrepreneurs. Real estate agents are entrepreneurs too. You've got a 90% failure rate in the business. 90% failure rate for entrepreneurs, period. Within 5 years, businesses fail. It fluctuates from 86 to 90%, depends on the year, but at any rate, high failure rate. And the point that I make when I'm sharing that story is don't wait until it's too late. As Gary Keller says in The One Thing, there is no such thing as balance. You're just constantly going in and out of balance.
That's
and the important thing is to make sure that you are telling the people when you're going out of balance and try to let them know how long you're going to do it. And then you got to go back out of balance in the other way. For example, maybe you've got a big project you're doing. Maybe you're starting your company and you're like, family, I'm going to need to spend the next 2 years in building this business. And you're not going to see a lot of me. After that, once we get to X point, we're going to go take a massive vacation together. And that's our reward. Just one example. For smaller things, it could be smaller projects, or maybe it's like a weekend where you've got I've got to work this weekend, and we're going to take time on Friday night after that, and we're going to go to a movie together. And you pick the movie, but that's our reward that we're going to do for daddy working so hard or mommy working so hard or whatever the case is. And you got to do that. You have to be able to tell the people when you're going in and out of balance and approximately how long, and then let them know that they have something on the other side to look forward to.
Yes.
Yeah.
I call it full court press. So you communicate to your family, okay, family, I'm doing a full court press the next 4 weeks. And I promise, 1 night per week, we're having a dinner, even during the full court press. And you know what it comes down to? It's communication and setting expectations to alleviate limbo. Because guess what humans don't like?
That's right.
They do not like limbo. So if you communicate clearly when you will be in counterbalance and set the expectation of what will happen at the end of it or during, and you actually follow through on that,
very important.
It's going to protect your loved ones.
Absolutely. And yourself as a result. And most importantly, relationships, both business and personal. And I think that's important. Kind of going along the same lines, it's important to let your business family, your business team, your clients know when you are not available. Here's a great example. Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A says we're not open on Sundays. They do not make any apologies for it. And they've leaned into it hard. Has that hurt their business? Absolutely no. Chick-fil-A is one of the most successful fast food restaurants, and they would argue with that label. One of the most successful fast food restaurants in the country. And they do it in spite of being closed on Sunday when virtually no other fast food restaurant in the country is.
Right.
And they lean into it because they communicate to their customers that they are closed on Sundays, and they say why. And that's exactly what, let's take real estate as an example, put it in another industry, and this is something that I coach my clients. This is what I was coached to do long ago. And that was tell your clients right up front when you like to work. What are your working hours and when are not your working hours? And then hold to it and tell them why it's important to your clients. For example, when I did that with my clients, I would tell them, my preferred work hours are from 8 a.m. until 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. That's when I work. Saturdays are by appointment only, and Sundays are off limits except for emergencies. And the reason is because my faith and my family come first.
Right.
And those are non-negotiable. And I need to be there for my kids. I need to be there for my wife. And that's important to me because being a husband and a father are the two most important roles that I can have. I'm going to work darn hard for you, but I got to have some time with my family or I'm not going to be any good to you. And you know how many clients I lost in 25 years of saying that? Absolutely zero.
Yeah.
In fact, I would argue that I actually got more clients because people would say, I've never heard a real estate agent say that before. and I respect it.
Yeah, they respect it. And people love knowing hours. People don't like limbo. So it cracks me up as we're talking about this. If you pull up some real estate salespeople on their Google profile, it'll say open 24/7, like 24 hours daily. And they don't just put hours on their profile. Why? Go ahead and put your hours. Then honor them. And people love it. Have you ever gone up to a local business in the middle of the day and it's not open and there's no explanation? Does that makes you're Googling, Yelping to see if it's permanently closed, what's happening? You get in the car, you're like, this is weird. But if you walk up to, I'll use Warhammer in Scottsdale. I walk up to it and it very clearly says we're open from 9 to 12:30. We're closed from 12:30 to 2 and then 2 to 6, and there's the hours. I go, oh, okay, I'll go do something and come back at 2. People love to know. We like patterns and predictability. Put your hours out there. And I would say this not just in real estate, but if you're doing any kind of sales that seeps into your full life, have professional boundaries you've set for yourself of when you work and when you don't. And like you said, have an outlet for emergency.
Mm-hmm.
Put it out there.
Yeah. Here's the secret, as you know, you have to honor those boundaries.
Yes.
Because the second you respond to that email at 10 o'clock at night, now you've just told your clients that you don't respect your own boundaries and they shouldn't either.
Right.
And now you've given them permission to violate those boundaries from here on out. And that's hard for a lot of people. It's hard for me still to this day, not responding to people. But I try to maintain my boundaries because I know it's important and I know what will happen if I don't. And that is far worse than responding to that email. Oh, it's just real quick. Mm-hmm. Well, we all know what happens with that.
Right.
And it's never good.
Well, and it can erode trust.
100% it does, because you didn't do what you said you were going to do.
Right.
And I think at the end of the day, what you're talking about is that you set expectations and you follow through on the expectations. You're telling people, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it. Yeah. I'm not asking for your permission. I'm telling you, this is what's going to happen. And most of the time, if you give a reason why you're doing it, people will go along with it. I'm sure you've heard of the study that was in the psychology study that was done for line skippers. Did you read that? You know that one?
Yes.
Right? Where
it's
someone will
entertaining.
try to skip in line at a fast food restaurant or whatever, and there's 10 people in line, you're in the back, and you just try to skip line. Hey, would you mind if I skip in line in front of you? And without giving any explanation or whatever. And the vast majority of people said, yes, I do mind. The line's back there. But when they did one simple adjustment, and that was give a reason why, I've got a dog in a car and I can't leave them for more than a couple minutes. Would you mind if I skipped in line so I can get my food and get back out to my dog? It was something like 85% or something like that said yes. It was a massive, massive difference because of one thing that changed. And that was they gave an explanation. And that's the whole point, is you can set the boundaries as long as you give an explanation as to why. Most people, maybe not everybody, but most people, regardless of whatever your explanation is, it really doesn't matter.
Right.
What matters is that you give an explanation. So they're like, okay, sure, that makes sense. And if you can make the explanation as a payoff for them, and that's even what I did for my business, it's even better. Like, for example, you don't want me burned out. That is not doing you any good. Mm-hmm. I need to be on my game. That's what you're paying me for. That's what you deserve. So I need a reset day. And that reset day is on Sundays. And so as a result, I'm going to be a better agent. I'm going to be a better negotiator. I'm better, whatever for you, because I do have that day of reset.
Right.
Okay. That makes sense. No issues. Whereas a lot of agents, and it's not just agents, it's a lot of business owners, I got to be available 24/7. I got to be open 7 days a week, or whatever. The reality is, my question is, do you? How do you know that to be true? How would you know it not to be true? Are you willing to try that and to see what happens? My guess is that you would probably end up thinking that what is actually going to happen is different from what actually happens. So my wife likes to remind me all the time, Bridget, you're not nearly as important as you think you are.
That's right.
Right. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a fireman. or a police officer or in the military or whatever.
Yeah.
Those are the people that do have like literally life or
life's
death
on the line.
jobs.
Correct. Yeah.
Most people don't. And so it's not as important. But here's the point. Our society has created the expectations such that we are an immediate gratification society. Look at Amazon, for example, where they're like, get it in, order now and get it by 6 o'clock the next morning or 8 o'clock the next morning. You're ordering at 11 o'clock at night. You don't need it by 8 o'clock in the morning. 99 times out of 100, you don't need it that fast. Maybe occasionally exception. There's the emergency where you need something really fast. If that's the case, you're probably going to go to a 24-hour place that has something, whatever, like maybe, medicine or whatever. The point is, we've created this sense of urgency, and I would argue it's a false sense of urgency.
Correct.
It's not real. And then we put it on ourselves, and we create the stress on ourselves unnecessarily, and the need that we always have to be on call. And that's pretty much the way it is for a lot of salespeople. What's the stat is something like, for real estate agents, if you don't respond to a lead within 5 minutes, your chances of conversion go down like 85% or 87% or something like that. 5 minutes. Is someone really needing to buy a house or talk about a house in 5 minutes from when they call you? Absolutely not. Yet we've put this on ourselves, and we've created that such that if you want that lead, you have to respond within 5 minutes. Even if it's in the middle of the night, God forbid you're sleeping or showering or, I don't know, spending time with your family.
Right.
But that's that. And unfortunately, those are the people that take the back seat because we put this pressure on ourselves. And I can't, and you've heard this probably more times than I have. And that is where agents say, well, I'm going to lose business.
Yeah.
Oh, my unique service proposition is that I'm available all the time, 24/7. I've got the best service. I'm always available to you. Really? Are you? Are you available in the middle of the night? Well, I put my phone next to my bed, and if you call me, and I'll answer. Why?
Yeah.
Why is I, as a customer, want to value your time if you don't value your own time?
Right.
That, to me, doesn't tell me a whole lot. And to be very frank with you, I don't have any respect for those people that do that because they don't have any respect for themselves and their time. They need to take that, kind of going back to the beginning of our conversation, they need to take the risk of saying, you know what? I don't care what other people think. I'm going to do me the best that I can. I'm going to provide an outstanding level of service. I'm going to communicate that level of service. And I'm also going to take time out so that I can have some reset time because that's important. I don't have to be all things to all people all the time.
Yep. So it's really remarkable that you bring up respect and perception, and the people that think the 24/7 all times, call me whenever and I'll be there. It is showing a lack of respect in yourself. And as you know, people will take advantage. And if they take advantage, do they feel respect for you? No. And it just is, it's setting up also a scenario where you're not going to get that in return. And are you going to turn people off who are going to be like 24/7? Good Lord, is she going to be calling me at 10 o'clock at night? So you're going to have more people trust you less than if you simply state, here's when I'm available, here's how I communicate, these are my hours, and this is why. Give the reason. So it is, and I feel like this does apply, I think, primarily to people that are in sales and high-end sales in particular. But if you think about it, it hits sales managers. They're constantly bombarded. It impacts so many people, and it impacts a lot of leaders who think the only way they can be a strong leader is, I'm here whenever you need me. I'm your, call me whenever. You think you're giving a gift of accessibility, but you're potentially damaging how people perceive you and how you perceive yourself on a subconscious level. I'm not a doctor, but I believe that is true.
Too. I believe you're spot on.
So let me ask you, Steve. Let's say that someone is in this conversation with us and they are feeling either stagnant or burnt out or underutilized. Maybe something they had passion for in their career no longer exists. Look at our industry has had changes, and they're sitting there and they're feeling stuck or feeling as if it's too late for them or feeling as if I would jeopardize my entire existence because I don't know if I will be able to pay for the life I've built if I make this change. If anyone is feeling remotely in that area, what is one thing you could share with them to do as just a first step? Like, what could they do?
The first step is kind of going back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, and that is take some time to really listen to what your heart's telling you to do. There's a reason why that thought cropped up in your mind to begin with. The unfortunate part is a lot of people wait too long to take action. They wait until they've quote unquote hit bottom, and it's never too late. I would argue that it can happen earlier, so you don't have to hit bottom.
Right.
However, there's some people that need to hit bottom, that have to hit bottom, because we know that the way the overwhelming majority of people make change because of pain versus trying to go towards pleasure. And we also know that people are so fearful of change that many times instead of making a change, they would prefer death over that.
Right.
And that was a recent study that I had seen by a psychiatrist. And it was a group of psychiatrists that published a paper on this. And it's horrifying when you think about it. People are so against change that death is actually a better option. I mean, think about that. You would rather die than make a change because people have all this self-talk. And as you were setting this question up, you included some of that. I can't do this. I don't have the money to pay for this. It's not the right time, whatever. Self-talk. And my question would be, how do you know that's true?
Right.
Most people don't know. They're creating their own narrative that may or may not be true. Most of the time it isn't. To get back to the beginning part, and the answer is really sit down with yourself, your thoughts, no distractions, turn your phone off, turn your email off, get in a place away from other people where you can actually sit, listen to your thoughts. I would encourage to journal, just whatever is coming on out of your mind, just have it go straight through your arm into that pen or pencil and just write. Doesn't matter what it looks like. Doesn't matter grammar, spelling, organization. It doesn't matter. Just write. And that in and of itself can be incredibly therapeutic because here's what I believe to be true. Everyone innately has the answer inside themselves. That's what we do as coaches.
Right.
We help to get the answer out of them. We're trained not to give people the answers, tell them the easy solution. Why? Because they're less likely to adopt it.
Yes.
Versus if they were to figure it out. This is the same thing. You're self-coaching. You're coaching yourself to get to an answer that you know is there. You just need to find it and you need to uncover it and then start to get the details on what is the one thing you need to do next such that you can work on the big goal of whatever it is you're going to, a career change, a life change, whatever it is, whatever that one thing is, but you got to do the one thing. And it's kind of like my favorite principle is the art of Kaizen, where you take one teeny tiny change towards making a big change. Quick example for people who are not familiar. I know you know Kaizen. This started in the auto industry when our executives went over after we bombed Hiroshima and they used Kaizen to get their auto industry back. Look what's happened now. It is the world leader for auto industry. They beat us at our own game because employing the art of Kaizen, which is one small step. Let's take that into a practical example that most people could understand. Let's say that you have been a couch potato for years. You're not in great shape. You've never run a day in your life. And you're like, you know what? I want to run a marathon next year. Great. You're not going to go out and start running 10 miles tomorrow. Just isn't going to happen. What you can do, however, to start is maybe the very first step is that you lay your clothes out the night before. You don't do anything about it. You still sleep until you normally sleep. You just lay the clothes out. And then maybe the next day you set your alarm to get up, maybe let's say an hour earlier or a half hour earlier. But the alarm goes off, but you don't get up. You just recognize it and your clothes are already out, but you go back to sleep. Maybe the next day the alarm goes up and you actually goes off and you actually get up and you put your clothes on, but you don't do anything. The next day, maybe you put your clothes on and then you go outside and you just kind of stand and maybe walk around the street for a minute and so on and so forth until one day you will be running a marathon because of all these micro steps that you're doing to get you to your goal. And that's all it takes to make that big change. For the question that you had asked at the beginning is, it all starts with a thought. And if you can't envision it, it's never going to happen. You've got to have a clear picture of what your life looks like and where you want to be before it can happen. Manifestation is the technical term, I think. And the example of this is professional athletes, golfers. Before they set foot on that course, they've already played that course in their mind. They've already seen themselves hitting the perfect putt, the perfect drive, the perfect chip. They've already seen that. Race car drivers, they go the Formula One drivers, you know this. What do they do before they even drive the course? They walk it with their team. And then they visualize it. They visualize them walking the course. They visualize where they're turning. And if you actually see them, like see videos, and there's some Netflix series or whatever on this, you can actually see them sitting in a seat by themselves, and they're like
mentally going through the whole thing.
You can see them moving, and their body is literally shifting and moving, and you can see them as they're going because they're acting like it's already there. Here's the cool thing. Your mind doesn't know that it hasn't happened yet.
That's right.
Because you know this because you trick it. And so I would suggest that if someone has this thought, there's a reason it's there. Number one, congratulations. You have an opportunity to change your life. And that's just the very first step. Now you are embarking on Kaizen. Now you've got a thought. Now you need to take that first step. And that is to take the first action that thought has. And maybe it's visualization of what does it look like to make this change so that you know what's going to happen. And now you can start manifesting what it looks like. And then you can start writing a plan, kind of like Abraham Lincoln. If I've got, 4 hours to chop down a tree, I'm going to take my first 3 to plan how to do it. Make sure I've got the right tools or whatever. It's the same thing. If you don't, how does the saying go? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Correct.
Then you got to have a plan, and then you start executing that plan. So the first thing is being open to that, recognizing it, celebrating that what your mind, what your heart, what your soul is telling you to do. That's there for a reason, and then you just have to have the courage to take that first step. No one's asking you to run a marathon the next day.
That's right.
What they are asking you to do is take that first step towards running a marathon. And then those baby steps are not as hard as they feel.
How important are the ties of the thoughts of others when you make a choice like that? What I mean is, one of my former podcast guests, Ryan Wimpy, he was in line to take over a family business, hardware stores. He was incredibly passionate about training dogs. And at a young age, before he took over the family business, he started his own dog training company and now turned that into a franchise and has had amazing success. His parents were, why are you doing that? You and I both know lawyers that have law careers that leave it to get into real estate. The parents are like, but you did the education and you have all of this, and what if it doesn't work? So how do you shut out or factor in other people's thoughts and expectations when you're going to potentially go rogue?
That's an incredibly important question. So I just recently had seen a study where people who are around you within a 25-foot proximity, they can either have a significantly negative or positive impact on your thought process. So if they have a negative impact on you, it could cost you up to 15% of the chances of you doing whatever it is that you're thinking of doing. If they have a positive impact on you, however, it can increase your likelihood of doing that and being successful by 30%. So there's statistical numbers, not just anecdotal. You know this, and we've heard this so many times. You are the sum of the top 5 people that you spend the most time with. I have a daughter in college right now, and that's something that I've tried to communicate to her effectively. And, talking with teenagers, you have one who used to be a teenager not
Yeah.
too long ago.
Right.
Sometimes they don't listen to what mom or dad have to say because what do we know? What I do know is the older you get, the more wise your parents become.
Yes.
And I also know that, she's had some, like most teenagers, she has positive and negative, and you've got all the hormones that are happening and it gets magnified a lot. So this is why I'm using this as an example, because it's magnified. She's had some just friends that have not been a positive influence on her, and it has really hurt her mental state of being as a result of that. I mean, really hurt it, whereby now she recognizes it. And so then she chooses to jettison these people and fill that void with positive. And that has been, like, this year alone has made all the difference to her. We can see a dramatic difference in her mental health, her stamina. She looks better. She feels better. She's got the right people there to support her. Does she have some negative? Of course, yeah, that pops in. But she chooses not to spend a lot of time with them. And that's just a great example, I think, of your question. And I'm going to pop in real quick one of my favorite books, and that is The Energy Bus. And it talks about this.
Yeah.
And have you read that?
I have, yes, and love it. You're right. It's perfect for this.
In my opinion, one of the best, most digestible books, even for people who, quote unquote, don't like to read. It's a super simple anecdotal book that talks about the simple effect and the powerful effect that energy and thoughts have on someone and their life and where they're going to go with it. And I would encourage anyone listening to this, if you haven't read or listened to, your choice, The Energy Bus, please do yourself a favor and do that, because it could quite literally change your life.
It can, yeah. That would be an excellent way to cut through some of the restraints that you may feel are holding you back or limiting your options. Excellent recommendation. So there's so much possibility, and even though it's scary, when you get on the other side of it, there's so much reward.
And here's something I'll just kind of leave with this, and that is, you cannot have success without failure. Mm-hmm. You got to be okay with failing. And I'm talking to myself too, because I hate failing. I hate failure. I have a huge fear of failure. I recognize this about myself, and I still do stuff as a result of that, because I know that when I fail, it is I learned something. Okay, this is one way not to do it. And that's okay, right? Now I know. Now there's one less possibility, one less path for me to go down. And we know that there is not one person on the face of this earth who has found success without finding failure first. So my challenge to everyone who is listening in here is go out on a limb, get outside of your comfort zone, and embrace failing forward, because that's exactly what you're going to do. Otherwise, you have just got knocked down and you're out of the fight because you're choosing not to get up and follow your passions, follow your dreams, follow your superpowers. That's what you're destined to do. And when you do that, there is unlimited potential for you, and more importantly and more powerfully, the people who are waiting to be impacted by you and the superpowers that you have to bring to this world.
Well, Steve, I want to thank you for sharing all of this. And I hope that anyone who's interested in learning further, they're going to be able to reach out and contact you everywhere this is posted. All of your links will be there. It is a great time, as we're approaching the end of the year, for people to reflect on, what am I doing every day? Am I a superpower? Am I able to develop my superpower while still maintaining my life with the current job and making it more of a job and less consuming? So take the time, sit down and write. Give yourself white space. Big fan of grounding right here, and go off grid. And you are right, Steve. There is potential, opportunity, and an epic life. Like, you can make your life more epic. I don't care how old you are or what you're currently doing or your starting point. So lean in, definitely read The Energy Bus. reach out to either of us if you want to discuss it further. And I want to thank you, Steve, for being our guest today. I hope that in the future, maybe we can do this again and talk about other ways that people can create excitement and passion in their life. If you're listening, I hope you'll return as well to the Interstate for the next episode. Have a great day.